Hello everyone. Welcome to this series on computer applications. This series is specially designed for students following the ICSE curriculum prescribed by the CISCE Council, New Delhi. We'll be covering key topics and concepts as outlined in the official syllabus, explained in a simple, practical, and student-friendly way. Today's topic is Introduction to Java Arrays. So let us start. An array in Java is a collection of elements of the same data type stored in contiguous memory locations. Contiguous memory locations actually means continuous memory locations. So if we create variables, say 5 variables, those 5 variables could be stored in 5 random locations, not side by side. But an array is always, all the elements of an array are side by side. So they are continuous. Alright, arrays are used to store multiple values in a single variable instead of declaring separate variables for each value. We'll consider this in a little while, but arrays are basically used to store multiple values in a single variable. So I'll use just one name to store, say 2 or 3 or 100 or a million values. Only a single variable would be used. What if we need to store multiple values of the same data type? One option is that we can use variables. This can be okay for 2, 3, or even 5 variables. So if I ask you to input 5 numbers or input 3 numbers or input 2 numbers, probably you'll create 2 variables like A and B and you can work with it. But what if we need more, maybe 10, 20, 50, 100, or we don't even know how many are there? So we cannot create so many variables. So we use something called as arrays. Why use arrays? Arrays help to reduce code length. You don't need many individual variables. So only one variable is used, one array is used. Organize data logically. For example, marks of 5 students or temperature over 7 days. So the data is organized into one compact kind of a data structure. Allow easy looping and processing using for or while loops. So we can use a loop to process them. I don't need to take individual inputs. I don't need to display individual values. For example, displaying individual variables, say 20 in number, will require 20 system.out.print statements. Whereas in arrays, we can use a single for loop to do the same thing. Now, how do we declare and initialize arrays? Declaring means you are telling the computer, create this array. Initializing is giving values to them. All right. So there are two ways you can declare them. You can either declare them with as blanks. So all of them will be zeros in the beginning. Or you can declare them with values. So we'll do both of them one by one. The first one is a declaration, create an int array of size 5. So I can use these two statements like int square brackets space marks is equal to new int square brackets 5. Now, what did you understand here? Marks is the name of the array over here. Int is the data type. This means the array will actually store int values. This bracket indicates to the computer that this is an array. Is equal to new. Now, new is basically used to allocate memory. And this int 5 basically tells the computer that the size of this array is 5 elements. Now I can use the same statement in a different way. I can use int and marks brackets. Now I have, instead of writing brackets, the square brackets with int, with that is with the data type, I have actually done it with the array name. So I prefer this one, and in fact you should also be using this one. Is equal to new int 5. This remains the same as the previous one. Now, when created, now what will happen now is an array called marks will be created, which can store 5 int values. And when it is created, the above array will have 0 stored in all the elements. So that means first element, that is marks 0, will contain a 0, marks 1 will contain a 0, and so on and so forth. How do we store values into each of those elements now? Now, the elements will always start with the position number 0. So that means, how do I tell the computer to store 85 in the first position? The first position in Java is actually the 0 position. So we'll write marks in bracket 0 is equal to 85. Now what does this statement tell the computer? The computer is told that 85 is to be stored in an array called marks in element number 0. That is the first element. Now what is this statement going to do? This is going to store 90 in the second element. So we write marks 1 is equal to 90, marks 2 is equal to so and so, marks 3 is equal to so and so. What is the last element going to be? The last element is going to be 4. Why? Because it is starting with a 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are the 5 elements. These are the positions of the 5 elements. Now you will declare an array like this if at the time of creating the array you don't know the values. But at the time of creating the array, you might know values. You may know the values. How do we create and initialize in one line? So you do it in the same way as in fact, from the left side of the equal to, the command remains the same. We specify the data type. We specify what is the name of the array. We specify the brackets indicating scores is an array, not a variable, is equal to. Now you can see the statement here. In curly braces, put down all the values separated by commas. So when I say 85, 90, 78, 88, 92, and end it with a semicolon, what will happen is it will actually create an array called scores which has a size of 5. Why 5? Because I have specified 5 elements here, 5 values here. It will create an array of size 5 and it will assign these values also. How do we access array elements? Suppose this array is created. Int scores brackets is equal to these 5 numbers. How do I display the first element? I can display it using system.out.println scores 0. Scores in brackets in square bracket 0 will display 85 because 85 is stored in position 0. What about the last element or the fifth element? So I can say system.out.println scores 4. So scores 4 because this is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is position number 4. This is position number 0. So position number 4 is displayed. So that is 92 will be displayed. That is the fifth element or the last element. How to use the length property of an array? You can use the length property of an array by using the dot length. So suppose I've created an array int grades brackets is equal to new int 15. So I've created an array of size 15. I can use grades dot length to find out the length. So if I display, for example, I say system.out.println grades dot length, it will display 15. Why? Because the array grades has a size of 15 and the positions would be 0 to 14. How do we process arrays using loops? Suppose I have created an array. This array is of size 5. Yes, I've given 5 elements over there. So what do? We create a for loop. In the for loop, what are the positions? The positions are 0 to 4, right? So I need to create a variable which will generate the values 0 to 4. How do I do that? I say for int I is equal to 0, so it will start with 0. I is less than scores dot length. Now scores dot length is actually 5, so less than 5 will be 4. So don't you think the values generated for I are going to be 0 to 4? And how does it display? Over here it is displaying scores I. So scores I will actually display scores 0, then scores 1, then scores 2, then scores 3, then scores 4. So it will display all the values here. To the user, we actually display something else. We display I plus 1 because the user should not be confused by the 0, 1, 2. The user doesn't know about that Java array start with position 0. So we write I plus 1 here. So I plus 1 actually will show 1, but it will actually give you the value of score 0. It will show you 2 here, but it will display the value of scores 1 here. So I think this should be very clear. What can be done if you need to display the array in reverse? So I want to start off with 4 and go up to 0. So how do I do that? I say int I is equal to scores.length minus 1. Why scores.length minus 1 is because scores.length is actually 5. I want to start it with 4, so I start it with minus 1. So it starts with 4. I is greater than or equal to 0, so that means it goes on till it reaches 0 and I minus minus. And same thing is same command that was given in the previous uh, for loop. Same command is given here, but it displays the array in reverse. I'm going to show you a program which in which we are inputting three numbers and displaying them back to the user. I'm not using arrays here, but you can see we are duplicating some statements again and again and again. I'm not using an array. I'm using three variables. So I create the three variables here. You know about the scanner and import java.util.star. I don't need to explain that. Int ABC, I've created three variables. Now to input the first number, I say please enter a number and then a is equal to sc.nextInt. That means this will take the input from the user. Then we display another message to the user. Again, second input is taken. If we next again, a message is displayed to the user and the third input is taken. Now you can see that this thing is being repeated again and again and again. Now these are only three variables. If there had been five, I would have been doing this five times. And how do I display them? I display them using system.out.println A and then B and then C. If there were more, I would have said D and E and F and G and I and J and so on and so forth. So there is basically a repetition of the same statement again and again and again. Why use variables? I need to use arrays. How do I use array? So again, same import statement, same scanner object is created. Now, instead of creating three variables, I create an array of size 3. So how do I do that? I say int m brackets is equal to new int 3. So it creates an array of size 3. Now, how do I take input from the user? Okay, so how do I take input? I use a variable, use a for loop, and in the for loop, I create a variable x which starts from 0, goes up to less than m dot length. That it'll go up to 2. So that means the positions that will be generated by the for loop are 0, 1, and 2. So, so when x is 0, it will display a message, please enter a number, and m0 is equal to sc.nextInt. So that means whatever input is being taken by the user will be stored in m0. That means the zeroth element of array m. X is going to be increased now, x is now 1. The next input is, whatever input is taken, it will actually go to m1. Similarly, when x is 2, the next input will actually go to m2, and so on and so forth. So after this loop finishes, we want to display the values back to the user. All I need to do is create a for loop similar to the previous one, and then simply display system.out.println mx. So mx, the possible values of x are 0, 1, and 2. So it will display m0, and then m1, and then m2. So that means all the three elements would be displayed. Now you can see that this particular program is created to input two numbers, three numbers. What if I need 30 numbers? What if I need 400 numbers? What if I need 5,000 numbers? Do I need to change the program much? No, I just need to change this 3 to that number that I need. So that large array will be created. So if I need 3,000 elements, so I'll say int m brackets is equal to int 3,000. This loop remains the same because this will again go up to 2,999. This loop remains the same. This will again go up to 2,999. I think this should be clear to you. Now, from the previous examples, how do you feel using arrays is advantages? First of all, the program is compact. We write less lines of code when using arrays. You saw that when we actually created the program with with the variables, we kept on repeating the same statements again and again and again. So that depends on how many variables we are creating. But in arrays, we don't do that. We just create a for loop, and the for loop makes sure that your work is done only with by using that for loop. It is scalable. Scalable means I can make the program do larger and or smaller stuff. So that means just as I showed you here, if this is only for three elements. If I need 300, I just need to change this 3 to 300. This program will now take input of 300 values, and it will display the 300 values. So it is basically a program becomes compact and it becomes scalable. Okay, let us start programming. I've created a basic structure of a class containing a main function, and I have just created a scanner object. I may need to take input from the user. How do I create a blank array? So how do I create a blank array? I say int m brackets is equal to new int say of size 10. Okay. How do I create an array of containing some values? So I can say int g brackets is equal to within braces. I write down the values that I basically need. So what does this line tell the computer? This line tells the computer to create a blank array of size 10. All of them will be storing ints. What is this going to tell the computer? This is going to tell the computer to create an array called g and of size 4, because we have supplied 4 values here. What if I need to create a float array? I'll basically need to say float, say f brackets is equal to new float in brackets, say 5. So that's it. Suppose I want to create a float, an array called fg, which contains some values. So I'll need to write 2.4, comma 4.5, comma 5.6. Now the problem is, it is actually showing you 2.4. It says incompatible type. Now why is it incompatible type? Is because this array is of type float, and what we are passing it are actually double values. You know that any fractional number without an f is actually a double. So I basically need to write f over here to specify that these are float values. So that is considered perfectly fine. All right, so what have we understood here? There are two things that we have understood. To create a blank array, we use this statement. To create an array with values, we use this kind of a statement. Moreover, on the second hand, if we need to create another type of array that is float or double or whatever type, so we need to specify that same type on the left hand side and on the right hand side of it. And this is the float array with values, and I have specified f over there to indicate all of these are basically float values. How do I display them? I can display them by writing system.out.println and I say fg. If I say fg0, it is going to display the 0th element of fg. Okay, all right. What if I want to display the first element of m? So I can say m, in fact g. So I can say g0. So this will display g0. What is g0 here? G0 is actually a value 12. And what is fg0? Fg0 is actually 2.4. So let us see what does it display and see the result. The result is a 2.4. That is the float array, and this is the int array. So these are the two values that have been displayed. Now we'll create a program in BlueJ to input 5 integers into an array, find and display the even numbers and the odd numbers. If the array contains the following numbers, say 10, 7, 6, 9, and 3, it should display even numbers first and odd numbers data. So that means it displays 10 and 6, which are the even numbers, and then odd numbers, that's just 7, 9, and 3. The next program is to input 5 integers in an array and display first the even numbers, then the odd numbers. Okay. First of all, let us create an array. So I'll create an array called M, which is of size new int 5. So I'll create. I need to take input from the user, so I'll use a for loop. So I'll say for int x is equal to 0, x is less than m dot length, and x plus plus. And over here we will take the input. So I will say display a message to the user system dot print, please enter a number, and I will take input from the user. So I'll say mx is equal to sc dot next int function. Now I have already created the sc object over here, so I'm just using it. What if I want to display all the elements? So what if I want to display all the elements? I'll simply say, I'll simply display mx over here. Okay, this should display. I can write println here, and in fact I can display a message. I can display a message. The numbers entered are, okay, and this can be written with a println so that the next thing displays on the next line. What I have done is not first display the even numbers, then the odd numbers. I have just displayed all of them. So that means I have taken input from the user in the first loop, and then I have displayed all of them. So let us consider, let's run the program. So please enter a number. This is the prompt to the user. I'll say 11 and 22 and 33 and 44 and 55. So all the numbers are entered. So what has actually it has taken all the inputs over here, and after the inputs are taken, the loop finishes, and then between the two loops this message is displayed, the numbers entered are, and then it displays all the numbers back to the user. So these are the numbers that we have entered, 11, 22, and these are the numbers that have been displayed back to the user. Let's correct this now. I wanted to display the even numbers. I cannot display even numbers and odd numbers in the same loop. Why? Because it will basically display both of them. I need to display only the even numbers. What I need to do now is I need to check whether the number mx, is it an even number. So how do I check whether it is an even number? I check it like this, and I put a brace here. So what is this going to do? This loop now is going to actually process each of the elements, but it will display only those elements where this condition is true, and this condition basically tells the computer that this is to be displayed only if mx is an even number. That means if you divide it by 2 and it displays it returns a 0. So I can say even numbers entered are, and let me just replicate this whole thing, and I just need to write m%2 is equal to 1. So if you divide it by 2 and the remainder is a 1, it is an odd number. So I can say odd number here. So what does this logic become now? I have created an array, a blank array of size 5. Using a loop, I have taken input from the user. Using a loop, I have displayed all the even numbers. The loop is actually processing all the elements, but it is displaying only those elements which are actually even. So these are displayed. Again, I start right from the beginning again, and I'm checking whether it is an odd number. So if it is an odd number, it displays the odd number. So when I run this program, I'm inputting numbers now. I'll say 11 and 22 and 33 and 45 and 67. It says the even numbers are 22. So 22 is the only even number here. Rest are all odd numbers. So it says the odd numbers entered are 11, 33, 45 and 67. So I hope this program is clear to you. The logic is clear to you. So we have done everything in different loops. One loop for input, one loop for displaying even numbers, one loop for displaying odd numbers. Please remember, for displaying you will have to use different loops. The second program is, the next program is to input temperatures of 7 days and display the highest temperature, the lowest temperature, the sum of the temperatures, and the average temperature. The next program is to input temperature of 7 days and display the highest temperature, the lowest temperature, the sum of temperatures, and the average temperature. Um, we'll do this whole thing one by one. I'll start by inputting the temperature of 7 days. Let us figure out what the temperatures are going to be. I think the temperatures are going to be float because we have 38.1 degrees Celsius, or these are all fractional numbers. So let's use fractional numbers for a change. So I say float f is equal to, or float temperature T is equal to new float in brackets 7 days. So 7 days means 7 elements. I need to take input now. How do I take input? I'll say for, I'll create a variable called x which is starting with 0. X is less than t dot length because t is the array now, and x plus plus. I need to display the day here. Uh, you know that I need to display x plus 1 here because the user basically doesn't know about the 0, 1, 2 and so on. He will need to be shown as temperature for day 1 as the first day, but it will actually be storing in day 0. Okay, so I'll need to write tx now. Tx is equal to sc dot next int function, then sorry, next float function. Okay, that's it. So the input is taken. All right. Um, I'm not going to display the temperatures. I'm going to find out the highest temperature now. How do I find the highest temperature? To find the highest temperature, we take a float variable, say h, which is going to be storing the 0th element of t. Now bear with me, you will be able to understand that is not a problem. So we start the loop again, we use the loop, and now we have stored the first element's value into a variable called h. Now h is going to be storing the highest value. Okay. So what did I do? I stored the 0th element. Whatever was stored by the user, the 0th element will be actually stored in h. And now I'm going to compare each of the elements with h. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check whether tx, that is the element which we are processing right now, is greater than h that was declared in the beginning. So if it is greater than h, what will happen is h will get that value because now that is the highest. So what did we actually do? This is the program basically to find the highest. So if I need to display the highest value, I just need to display something like println the highest value is plus h. So that's it. So what is going to happen now is that we have created a float variable called h which will store t0. This t0 has been entered after the first loop finishes, right? The first loop has finished now. So you will store in t0 into a variable called h, and you start the loop from beginning to the end. You check whether every element, any element which is T0 or T1 or T2 or T3, if it has a value greater than H, then what should happen is H should get that value. So if suppose T2 has a value greater than H, H will get the value of T2. Okay. And finally, when we finish this loop, it displays the highest value. Let us run this program and see how things happen. Temperature for the first day is 38.1 and 39.9, then 40.2, then 35.5, then 35.7, then 45.3, then 45. So it says the highest value is 45.3. Yes, 45.3 is the highest value on day 6. So what do you think has actually had happened? Once these input had been taken, basically 38.1 was stored in the variable called h. Now it compares all these values. 38.1 is compared with h. Is it greater than h? No. Is 39.9 greater than h? Yes, it is. So h now is 39.9. 40.2, is it greater than h? Yes, it is greater than 39.9. So 40.2 is now the value going to h. Then 35.5. Is 35.5 greater than 40.2? No. Is 35.7 greater than 40.2? No. Is 45.3 greater than 40.2? Yes. Now this h will get the value of 45.3. Lastly, 45, is it greater than 45.3? No. So what is the last value for h got? That was 45.3, and that is what is going to be displayed to the user. All right. What if I wanted both the largest and the smallest, that is highest and lowest values? So I can use a variable called L. So I store T0 in that also. And what do we do here? We check else if Tx is less than L. So that means if Tx is less than L, that means L should be smaller. So L is equal to Tx. So what have we written here? In the beginning, before the loop started, we have created two variables called h and l, both of them getting the t0 value. And we are starting processing with all the elements. If any of these elements has a value greater than h, then h gets that value. Else, if any of the elements is having a value less than l, l gets that value. And I've put an else over here. Why? Because if tx is greater than h, it is not going to be less than l. So these are exclusive. So that is why the else over here. What am I going to do now is to display the value of L over here and then say the lowest value is so and so. Okay, we can run this program a little later. What else did we want? I wanted the sum of all the temperatures. Sum of all the temperatures, I need the sum. So I need a counter called sum which is having a value of 0. Now please remember sum is also a float, and I just need to, it should not be in the if, so I'll say sum plus equal to gx. So I have done everything in the same loop. Because I'm not displaying, I can do this. Okay, so I have created a variable called sum which is 0, and it accumulates all the temperatures. Then I have created t and l as the highest and lowest, and we have done this. And after doing this, I can say the sum of all is, I can display a value of sum over here. Over here we need to display the value of sum. I need to calculate average also. So average has to be calculated after the loop finishes. So I can say float avg is equal to sum divided by by t dot length. I could have said 7, but why should I say 7? Because if the length is more, it will change here also. So I need to display the average. So I'll need to display the average, and this should be average of all is AVG. Okay. Let us compile and run this program and see what happens. Enter temperature for day 1. I'm just writing numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, the highest value is 7 because that is the last temperature entered. The lowest value is 1. Yes, that was the lowest temperature entered. The sum of all is 28. If you add all of them, it is actually 28. And the average of all is 4.0. If you check, 28 divided by 7 is 4. Yes. So that is average is 4 degrees Celsius. So I hope the program is clear to you. The next program is to input 10 integers into an array, find and display the sum of even numbers, the sum of odd numbers. If there is no even number or odd number, it should display an appropriate message. So that means if in the array I input 10 even numbers only, it should display the sum of even numbers is so and so, and then it should also display that there is no odd number. So that means it cannot display the sum of odd numbers. Alright, the next program is to input 10 integers into an array, find and display the sum of even numbers, sum of odd numbers, and if there is no even or odd number, it should display an appropriate message. So that means if there is no even number, it should display there is no even number. Something like that. Okay. First of all, input 10 integers in an array. So let me create. Now, after the input is done, we need to find the sum of even numbers and odd numbers. So I need to create two accumulators now. So I'll create one variable as sum e, which is 0, and sum o, which is equal to 0. Okay. Sorry, I need to put a comma here. Alright, so I'll use again a same for loop, and then in this for loop I will now check if mx, the element, is an even number. So I'll say if this is an even number, what do I need to do? I will need to add it to sum e. So I'll say sum e plus equal to mx. Else I don't need to check anything now. Why? Because if it is not an even number, it must be an odd number. So I'll say sum o plus equal to mx. So this part is done. I now need to display the sum of even numbers and sum of odd numbers. So I'll say print ln the sum of even numbers is plus sum e, and I can display the same message with sum of odd numbers. Odd numbers is sum. I have not displayed if there is no even number or odd number. I have not taken care of that. We'll take care of that a little later now. But this part is done, right? So we have taken the input from the user. We created a blank array first. We took input from the user. And then we created the two accumulators. And then we started a loop and checked whether if it is an even number, we added it to the even accumulator, else we added it to the odd accumulator, and ultimately we displayed the two values. Let us run this program and see. So the numbers entered are, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. The sum of even numbers is 30 and sum of odd numbers is 25. So this part is a pretty straightforward one. So that should not be a problem. What if I now wanted to find whether there is no even or odd number? How will I find? Can I find it using the same variables that we have? Don't you think I need to count? All right. So I need to count those even numbers. So I'll need a count of even numbers which is 0 and count of odd numbers which is equal to 0. And over here, if the number is an even number, then CE is increased by 1. And if it is not, then CO is increased by 1. Okay. Now over here, I need to figure out whether CA has a value. So that means if CE has a value, that there must be some even number there. So I'll check if CE is greater than 0, then that means the even sum should be displayed. Else, some appropriate message should be displayed. So what is the appropriate message that we are going to display here? That there is no even number. All right. Now, similarly, for the other part also, we need to do the same. Arrange everything. So what did we actually add up here? We added two counters here, and those counters are increased by 1 when the appropriate system happens. When the number is an even number, it will actually count the even numbers, else it is going to count odd numbers. Let us run this program and see how things happen. I'm going to put the same values. I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. It displays both because there are even numbers, there are odd numbers, both of them. Let us run this program using only even numbers. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. So it says the number of even numbers is 110 and there is no odd number. So why did it display there is no odd number? Because the count of odd numbers was 0 because none of them, the numbers are actually odd. You can see from here. Okay. So this is the program that we wrote. Okay. Scanner object is created, a blank array is created. We using a for loop, we have taken input from the user. These are the accumulators for the sum of even numbers and odd numbers, and these are the counters for counting even numbers and odd numbers. Again, we used a for loop, and in the for loop, we checked whether the number, if the element is actually an even element, we accumulated some E and CE, otherwise we accumulated some O and CO. Finally, after exiting from this loop, we checked whether CE has a value. If CE is greater than 0, that means there must be some odd even number. So we displayed the even, okay, even sum. Otherwise, we displayed there is no even number. Similarly, we did the same thing for CO also. I hope this is clear to you. There are a few things to be considered. Java arrays are basically objects. So an int array of size 10 will occupy more memory space than 10 int variables. Now, if I have 10 int variables, how much memory will all the 10 int variables occupy? It will be 10 into 4 because the size of each int is 4 bytes. So the total size would be 40 bytes. What about an int array of size 10? Now, this is also storing 10 bytes only, but what is the total size of the array now? Because this is an object and object's header is always of the size of 12 bytes. So this is what will be required. Okay, this memory will be required because it will require 12 bytes to store the object's header. It will require 4 bytes, that is the length of the size of the length property. Now don't you think we need that length property also? So we say array dot length. like scores.length or m.length. So that length property is also going to use some memory space, that is only one int space, that is 4 bytes, and the size required for the 10 ints, so that is 40. So this is the same as the previous one, but this it basically requires 16 more bytes. Why? Because 12 bytes for the object header and 4 bytes for the length property. So the total size is 56 bytes. Now, important points to be considered: when a blank array is created, all elements contain a 0. We are basically summarizing some things. Array indices start from 0 and go up to length -1. Trying to access an index out of this range will cause an array index out of bounds exception. You may or may not remember this, but okay, it is useful to remember this. So that means if an array of m has a size of 5, and I try to access M6 or M9 or M25, the program is going to crash, and this exception will be raised. The length of an array is fixed once it is declared. So if I declare an array of size 10, you cannot change the size of that array. You may be asked to do the following in the board exams, for example. So if no, this is a tricky kind of a thing. When you are asked to display the second element. Now, second element is M1, all right, for example, M1, because the first element is M0. So please remember, we are talking about the first and the second and the third and the last and so on and so forth. When it says first or second or whatever, then you have to figure out which position we are talking about. Now, if on the other hand, the question could be to display element number 4. Now, this is very straightforward. If they are saying element number 4, they are not saying fourth element. They are saying element number 4, and that will be M4. So that should not be a problem. But if I say display the fourth element is actually M3. So you need to figure that out. Now, if I say display the first element, display the first element is not M1, it is M0. So M0 will be displayed or used. And how do I display the last element? We can use m dot length. So I can say m in brackets m dot length -1. So m dot length is going to give you the actual size of the array. -1 will be the last position, and this will be m and the last position. I hope this is understood. Key features of arrays. Arrays store fixed size sequence of elements. Once created, the size cannot be changed. All elements in an array must be of the same data type, that is, all int, all doubles, all strings, all whatever. So all of them will be of the same data type. Each element in the array can be accessed using index starting from 0, and the length property can be found out by using the length property of the array. Now let's start some higher order thinking. Suppose you need to store marks of 100 students. How can you do it in a program? Would you use 100 variables? Can I use 100 variables? Yes, I can use 100 variables. Alright, so I can use 100 variables, but I will need to write down so many statements just to store values and so many statements just to display those variables. And maybe so many statements would be written to basically maybe to add them or whatever. And secondly, what if the numbers change tomorrow? So if even if I create the program using variables, what if the number changes? What if this 100 becomes 200? Or what if this 100 becomes 10? Can you make the changes without changing too much? No, you will have to change too much. What if we create an object and display the object not with, okay, by object by using system.out.println. For example, I'm using an object here. There's no array here. Okay. So I need you to understand this. When I say demo A is equal to new demo function, so that means it creates an object called A. All right. Now, instead of displaying A dot something, I just say system.out.println A. So I just display the object as it is. what will it display? It will display a message like this. It will say demo at the rate 4B98 whatever whatever whatever. So what does this particular message mean? Before the at the rate sign, it is written demo. So basically it says that this is an object of demo class and it is on the memory location 4B98 whatever. So that means if I create an object and display it as it is, it will actually display a message like this. You can try it out on your program, on your BlueJ. Now similarly, what if you create an array and display the array? By the way, if I need to create an array and display the values in the array, I say M0 or M1 or M whatever. I don't say M. So what if I say M? Right? So suppose I've created an array called M, which is of 5 elements, and I say system.out.println M. I did not say M0, M1, I just wrote M. Now this will display something like this. It will display a square bracket I at the rate so and so. Now what does this mean? This means that this is an array. That means that square bracket is basically telling that this is an array of integers that I basically tells the computer it is an integer and is on memory location 48B, B, and so on and so forth. So that means if you by mistake display the array like this and it displays you a cryptic message like this, you should be able to decode this. For example, if this had been a float array, it would have been, instead of the I, it would have displayed an F over there. If this had been a double array, it would have been displaying a capital D over here.